Hello there, YouTube. This is the Rogue Gem Player coming at you with a Vaylantz deck profile. This is an update for September after the ban list comes out. So why not, bring back the deck and convey some of the theories that I've kind of formed as I tested the deck, and kind of just give you my thoughts on it and see what you guys think about it. So first things first. So the deck is pretty unique. So it plays this kind of like tabletop, engine, which is pretty cool because it's got basically two separate engines that kind of mesh really well. You got the pendulum stuff, and then you have, the extra deck and things like that. So let's get right into it. So to start off, we're playing 3 copies of Shinonome. She's probably the best Vaylantz monster in the deck. And it's mainly because she searches basically anything in the deck. So all of them have a pendulum effect that summons themselves from the pendulum zone. Okay, when they're there, and then they have an effect on the field where they have actually 2 effects, monster effects, which when they're on field and they are special summoned, okay, once during the main phase, you can activate an effect. Okay. If they are moved from one zone to another, okay, from one monster zone to another, they gain an effect. Okay, in this case, once per turn, you can add a Vaylantz spell from deck to hand if you control this special summon card, and then when she moves zones, she adds monsters. So this is your bread and butter. You kind of need to play through this. And then we're playing 3 copies of Scion, the Vaylantz Archer. It is your level 4 of the deck, and one of your level 4s. And just like Shinonome, his pendulum effect is if you can special summon this from your pendulum zone. In addition to that, the 2 stars and the 4 stars Xenolock you. Okay, and what I meant by that, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except non-Vaylantz monsters from the extra deck. Okay, so if you use their effect, you cannot special summon non-Vaylantz monsters from hand or deck. You have to summon them from the extra deck. So we do play a supplementary engine, or kind of like a playset of cards that kind of help get you extra bodies. So when he's on field, okay, you can target an effect monster and then flip a coin. If it's heads, negate its effect. If it's tails, have its attack. And then if it moves zones, you can target a card in the field, toss a coin, and if the result is heads, you destroy it. If it's tails, you bounce it. So basically, it's always going to have some sort of advantage. Like moving it zones is probably the best because it gets rid of a monster, or gets rid of a card in this case. So, and then we're playing 2 copies of Nazuki, the Vaylantz Ninja. Now, the level 6s and the level 8s, okay, have to have their respective field spell on the board, or a Vaylantz monster of the same attribute to summon themselves. They do not lock you, but because you're playing Vaylantz, you're gonna be under a lock anyway. When he's on board, once per turn, you can move zones, and then when this card does move to another zone, you can target a Vaylantz monster in your spell and trap, and then special summon it to a monster zone in its same column, which is actually pretty important because you can put stuff back. You can put stuff into the spell and trap zone, and then just summon them out with him. And then the last one is Hojo, the Vaylantz Warrior. He is the boss monster he's the main deck boss monster for the water attributed Vaylantz monsters. He has the same pendulum effect as the ninja. He targets a 1 card in either spell trap and then bounces, okay, when he's on the board. And then if he moves to another zone, you can fusion summon, okay, using monsters from your hand, field, or pendulum zone. So you can summon one of the Vaylantz fusion monsters with him. He's actually really important to make Momonaka, which is the 3 material one. Now, we had water spellcasters, now we have the fire machines, which are the other half of the Vaylantz So they each have a 2, 4, 6, and an 8 star. So we have Vaylantz Buster Baron. Has the same base. It has the same pendulum effect as the 2 and 4 stars. Okay, and when he's on board, you can target another Vaylantz monster and move zones. When he does move zones, you can also target one card in either player's pendulum zone and place it face up in the adjacent spell. You can target one card in either player's pendulum zone, place it face up in an adjacent spell trap zone. So you can kind of move stuff around. In addition, it's good in like pendulum mirror matches where you can kind of just put stuff there, and it makes it very hard for your opponent to get rid of. It also frees up a zone because you can use the field spell to summon. So we're then playing for the level 4s 3 copies of the Voltage Viscount, and when he's on board, you can target a face-up Vaylantz Pendulum in your extra deck, and then place it face up in your spell and trap as a continuous spell. So this kind of helps you recur, and then when he moves zones, you can place a face-up Vaylantz Pendulum monster in your extra and place it in your pendulum zone. So this allows you to kind of get some free advantage, which is pretty cool. After that, we're playing 3 copies of Mad Marquis. He is the only one that I would really play 3 of the 6s, and that's mainly because now you need Koenig Wizen or a Fire Vaylantz to summon him from the pendulum zone. So keep that in mind. There are 2 field spells in the deck. During your main phase, you roll a 6-sided die, okay, and you excavate that many, you add a Vaylantz card. So it kind of helps you dig in the deck, okay, and then you can roll a 6-sided die when he moves, and that is if the result is 2, 3, 4, or 5, you can special summon a monster card from your spell and trap zone in the same column. So basically, if you have a monster in the spell and trap zone, okay, as long as the result is not 1 or 6, you're gonna get basically a free monster out of it. So you can kind of get some free advantage for basically no reason. The last one is Dominator Duke, and he's kind of unique. So you can target a set card in the spell and trap zone. Okay, that set card cannot be activated in this turn, except when this card leaves the field, obviously. And then, so you can kind of jam up a card. It does not prevent your opponent from activating it in response, so keep that in mind. And then when he moves zones, you can target a face-up monster in your opponent's main monster zone. You can take control of it. Okay, it cannot attack or activate its effects, but it is treated as a Vaylantz monster, so keep that in mind. There's actually a for one of the main fusions, you kind of need this. So it's good for taking a free monster when you move zones. Okay. Now, for support stuff, playing 3 copies of Bis Actor Curtain Riser. The reason why it's in here is, so until you get Xenolocked by the Vaylantz Scarf, you can actually just keep playing other things. So in this case, you just play Curtain Riser, you summon it, and then you go off, and then it's a free monster that you can use for like Exceed the Pendulum or Beyond the Pendulum or whatever Link monsters you want to play. So, and then, obviously it's going to be put into the extra deck, so now it's a 4-star that can be summoned from the extra deck, so it's free material at that point. Now, you probably don't know these guys, but these are the Pendulum Spirit Monsters. So how these work is they have the same pendulum effect. They're scale 9, which is actually pretty important. You need high scales because all the Vaylantz monsters are low scale 1s. Okay, if you pendulum summon, you return the card back to your hand. Now, when they're on the field, they have effects. But the main thing is that they're 9 scales that are easy to access because you can go beyond the pendulum to add one of them, and as long as you open up one of the other pendulum monsters, you kind of just have place. So, now for the non-engine, we're gonna play 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring and 3 copies of Nibiru. These are the hand traps of choice that I like. And you can make these whatever you want. You can even make the non-engine stuff bigger if you'd like. It's completely up to your preference. That's all there is to it. Now, I'm going to put these 2 up. We have 2 copies of Vaylantz World Koenig Wizen and 2 copies of Vaylantz World Shinra Bansho. Now, collectively they basically share an effect. When the card is activated, they place the opposite field spell to your opponent's field. So if you activate Shinra Bansho, you place Koenig Wizen on your opponent's side of the field. You actually have to have them in deck to summon, to play. So keep that in mind. That's why we're playing 2 copies of each. Now, If there's cards in both field zones, okay, the turn player can activate the effects that they have, which basically means you can either move a monster from your monster zone to the spell and trap, or the other one will give you the ability to move a monster from the spell trap to the monster zone. Now, because of game mechanics, if a card is attempting to move to a zone that is occupied, it will self-destruct. Okay, it cannot move to a zone that's already occupied. So keep that in mind. It is a game mechanics ruling, so keep that in mind. So that's how you're going to be able to summon back your stuff. Now, if you play this correctly, you can actually get rid of the one that summons back. Okay, so the idea is that what you're trying to do is you're trying to establish a board where you kind of make stuff and then you bounce the Shinra Bancho back to your hand, and then all you can do is put stuff in the spell and trap zone. So, but you do need the field spells to make your plays. We're then playing 3 copies of what's basically the Rhoda, which is solo activation. You place a Vaylantz Pendulum from your deck in your Pendulum zone, and then if there's a card in the field zone, you can banish this card to move a Vaylantz monster from your main monster zone to another zone, adjacent or horizontal monster zone. You can activate each effect once per turn. So this is how you can make Shinonome without additional setup, because you just put Shiranome and then you get the field spell on board, and then, you know. Speaking of the field spell, we are playing with 1 copy of Vaylantz Wars, The Place of Beginning. This card basically adds a Vaylantz field spell from deck to hand, and then you can apply the following effect if you choose to: destroy a pendulum monster you control, and then add Senate Switch from your deck to your hand, which is this old card from Cyberdark Impact. If you actually have these, you can, you know, they're nice. Which basically allows you to move a monster to an adjacent monster zone, which is the whole concept of the deck. In addition, when this is in the graveyard, except the turn it was sent there, you can banish it to place a face-up Vaylantz monster from your extra deck to your Pendulum zone. So it gives you a free card during your next turn, basically. And then we're playing 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, because why not? So now for the extra deck, we're playing it. The extra deck is kind of playing a couple of their fusions, and then the rest is just link monsters. So to start off, we're playing Momonaka the Vaylantz United. This is the 3 material one. Basically, he's kind of like a win more card, in my opinion. You don't have to play this, but it is neat to have. They all basically have... So I'm just going to go bring these guys up. 2 copies of Grand Duke and 2 copies of Chronochasm the Vaylantz. So they all have basically the same pendulum effect, where you can special summon them. Okay, they all have an effect to place themselves on the pendulum scale, so keep that in mind. And how this works is they place themselves and then they can summon themselves back, and then they also have the effect to move monsters around. So that's the main thing about their pendulum effects. They all share this. Momonaka allows you to target an effect monster in your opponent's main monster zone, okay, and place in the face-up spell and trap, okay, in the same column. Okay, if that zone is occupied, destroy the occupying card, okay, and then your opponent loses life equal to that monster's attack. And then if this special summon card is destroyed, you can place it in your pendulum zone. So that's what Momonaka does. Grand Duke, okay, requires 2 Vaylantz monsters, but you can summon it by attributing 1 level 5 or higher non-fusion Vaylantz in the same column as an extra monster zone. So this is why you can use your opponent's high-level monsters as material when you use Dominator Duke. Okay, if this card is special summon, you can target a monster card in your opponent's spell and trap zone and return it to hand, and then inflict damage. So it allows you move something to the spell and trap, and then you bounce it to your opponent's hand, you burn them. So that's him. He's easy. He's the easiest to make. And then we have the newest one, which is Chronochasm Vaylantz, and he can be summoned by using 2 level 5 or higher Vaylantz monsters, and you tribute those. And then quick effect, you can switch the locations of 2 monsters in your zone or 2 monsters in your opponent's zones. So, and then if a card in the monster zone is moved, he blows up a card. So keep that in mind. He also does not have the effect to put himself in the pendulum scale, so keep that in mind. Neither does Dominator Duke. They get basically placed by other effects. Now, for the Link monsters, we're playing 2 copies of Beyond the Pendulum, which is actually pretty important because it helps you get into monsters. And then we're playing 1 copy of Exceed. Exceed kind of helps give you more stuff because it does recur one from extra deck, which is pretty cool. So you can kind of get stuff back, and then if you have other things, you can special summon if your scales get completed again. So that's part of the pendulum portion of the deck. We're then playing 1 Nightmare Phoenix for Spell and Trap for corner cases, 1 IP Masquerena. If you have SP Little Knight, you can play SP Little Knight. The 1 Celine. Occasionally you'll get spellcasters in the graveyard. In this case, like Exceed or Beyond, you can bring them back if you've, used them. 1 copy of Nightmare Unicorn. The 1 copy of Blackluster Soldier of Chaos, because you're playing high levels. The 1 copy of Boral Sword, and the 1 copy of Access Code. In fact, the main combo now will actually result in an access code. So, yeah, this deck is pretty unique. Its basic combos aren't super explosive, unless you're playing like the Fossil Dyna, Lock, or FTK that they have going around. It's completely dependent on what you want to do. I like playing these type of decks because they're cool rogue decks. They're something, and the deck is relatively cheap. Their collector's rares are like dirt cheap. Like, they've got quite a few, except for Shiranome. It's like one of the more expensive ones in that set, but it's a pretty cool deck, and it's one of those. It's an introduction to Pendulum without playing Pendulum in a sense, because it kind of cheats the mechanic a little bit. So, this is the Rogue Jam Player. Comment, rate, subscribe, and let me know what you guys think. Bye.